This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome in, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross. All right, now I'm here.
No, you're not.
I'm not?
The sound is barely working, but keep going.
Hello, people. Sorry about this. Do we need to...
No, I got it.
Jack left
the mic.
Oh.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, well, I'm already miffed at him today anyway. So that would explain why I couldn't hear you earlier when we were doing our test.
I was like, I know I have the right thing plugged in.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this. It's not making sense to me.
So, sorry for the false start there. We'll go back 5 yards and try it again. Welcome into the Triple Option. Paul Catalina and Garrett Ross here with you. And I will just tell you that the weather here in Waco is awful. It is terrible. It's been terrible for the last 24 hours. Driving home last night, we're all lucky to be alive.
For real, man.
It was really bad. We left and it hadn't started raining yet. And then as soon as you're about halfway home, it just unleashed.
So we were I had a little more of a pass going the opposite direction than y'all, but by the time I got into Robinson, it was starting to pick up, and I had Parker in the car, and he's gathering all of his toys and telling us to put stuff over our heads so we could run in, and we got in just in time, but our neighbors were not as lucky, man. We were watching them run for their lives and that stuff.
Yeah, I big tree branch down in my yard, which is the third one, and I looked at the tree and I was like, it is now fully dead. So now I have to call a guy, another guy, and go, here's money, get rid of this tree. And before one of you DIYers gets in my shit about it, and I'm in that kind of mood today, before one of you guys does that, am I climbing a goddamn tree? No, nope. I'm not going to chop a tree down. I will pay a guy to do it. Congratulations on your manliness over me. You can, your auditions for the Brawny Paper Towel Man are next month. So anyway, but yes, it's a kind of a tall tree too. So it's going to be a pain, but, and I know that I'll get a guy and he'll be like, I'm going to do it. It'll be cheap. And then he's going to find something you didn't tell me it was this. And you're like, all right. So anyhow, but if you know a good tree guy here in Waco, let me know.
Let him know.
I will call them. And then it's just been a cavalcade of annoying things have happened to me today. Mm-hmm. So I'm ready to jump into it, Garrett.
Yep.
I'm ready to jump into it. Yeah. We're into the Bobcat. $1,000. It better not be. So.
What's $1,000?
Getting a tree taken down. It could be
hell
not
no.
that. No.
You better. No. You can find somebody.
No, I'll find somebody. I'll find somebody cheaper than that. Especially for this tree, shouldn't take too long.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I had the big tree which was $700, the one that violated my pipes.
Oh, the pipe. Oh, yeah.
That one, that was very expensive because of a big tree. It was very much alive. I know, because I was giving it all the water in my house. And so it took a while for them to do that. That was a longer job, and they had to haul it out. They needed 2 trucks to haul it off in because the water was the trunk was so dense and heavy. But no, this one, he even said hey, while we're here, let me just take care of this part of this tree for you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
And it took him literally 30 minutes, and he was done. But anyhow, I'm very much looking forward to this. I do want to get into a couple things before we get to our main topics.
Okay.
First of all, the Scotty Scheffler video was released, and the Louisville police.
They have a good track record. I'll say that.
They don't look very smart in this one here.
Imagine that.
He didn't drag anybody. Looks like the guy got a little bit embarrassed and decided he was going to take it out on Scotty, on the Masters champion. Yeah. And then as that, that's one of those things where, and here's the grace I will give this guy. I have been in situations where like your temper gets the best of you, and then like you double down on it, and then like as soon as you come out of it, you're like, was that Scotty Scheffler? Crap.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you got to be a little.
No,
more
you got to be better. You got to be better. You got to be
That's
better.
ridiculous.
You got to be better. You got to be better. Yeah, that's
the whole incident was very tragic. And I don't understand, like, people going through, you should stop and everything, but how all that went down and then not having the cam on, and that's a big thing. That happens all the time, but it just happened to be Scotty Scheffler this time, so we're actually taking account for it. But
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I mean, it is. But yeah, it's not. Yeah, the officer's been disciplined.
Yeah,
that was just, you knew it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. You knew it was going to happen, and as soon as that was why Scotty Scheffler was so. You've watched the video that Jeff Darlington put out. He was so confused as to what was happening. Happened? Yeah, it wasn't like he was doing, he turns left into Valhalla and he goes around. There's no way he knew that, what had happened beforehand. Mm-hmm. And it's not like somebody was going car to car and being, oh, by the way, here's the tragedy that happened. He was just like, well, I need to find a way to get in because, playing the PGA Championship here, I got a routine here, So, I mean, maybe had somebody gone and told everybody, oh, okay, well, let's let them figure this out first, but that's clearly not what was going on. So that is funny. And this is a non-sports story, but it's kind of a sports story. The U.S. government is doing something that they've been should have done for a long time, been working on for a while, is they are going after Live Nation and Ticketmaster and trying to break them up, which I think they will, because usually when they finally decide to go after a big company, they know that they can do it. But tickets to things, particularly concerts, and now it's spilling over into ball games, are getting really, really ridiculously expensive. Yeah. And it's because they have a monopoly over everything. They they have venues that they're exclusive to and all of this. So it's not a good deal for the artists. Mm-hmm. Eddie Vedder at Pearl Jam's been fighting Ticketmaster for years. And it's not surprising that one of the smartest guys in music is the one who's out in front of things. Taylor Swift was not she's not fond of it. Now listen, she benefits more than everybody else. It doesn't really hurt her, but she's been very much an advocate of this is kind of bogus.
Well, I mean, to me, it's her. She's got a platform, right? She's a big. So if you're doing it to her, and it's not going to impact, you're doing it to everybody else who's going to have a larger impact on them. Yeah, exactly. So use your platform to benefit other people.
Exactly. Yeah. And but it's good because it would start spilling over even more into, the larger you get monopolies, let monopolies get there, we're going to do that. So for sports fans, it's going to be hard. I went to that Garth Brooks concert a couple years ago, and it was expensive.
I imagine.
And I mean, I had a blast, but I still was well, this put a hurting on me for a little bit, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience and all that stuff, but again, it shouldn't cost that much, and it should be available to the masses a whole lot more. But when you saw, I knew this was probably going to come when there was, national news stories all over last week about people going to Paris. It was cheaper to fly to Paris, go see Taylor Swift there, than see her in New York City.
That should never happen. That's ridiculous.
To get on an international flight, fly across the Atlantic Ocean, land in one of the most expensive cities in the world that you can go to on a vacation, and still be cheaper than going in New York City. Now listen, if that was, and here's the thing, that's almost encouraging you to do it. If you're a Taylor Swift fan and you'd always wanted to go to Paris and it's cheaper to
perfect.
That's an amazing vacation.
Absolutely.
But you should also, if you live in Denver, be able to go see Taylor Swift without having to leave the country for an affordable price. That's just stupid.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. So I'm happy that's coming. So, but yeah, that's, Taylor Swift's she's the best. So, yeah. And by the way, Kim Coulter says PGA Tour players are all told to take a very specific route. Scheffler was just doing what he was told.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you got a guy who's just decided. And, and look, here's the thing. Here's why I think this happened. Because he ripped his pants.
Oh, absolutely was. He got embarrassed.
He got embarrassed. Like, he ripped his own pants. And because of that, like, it was Scotty Scheffler's fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how that went down.
That's all exactly how it
That's how it went down.
It's like a little kid.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Alan says I would look good in Jordan 3s. I don't know where that came from, but I'll go get some. I mean, I have no problem going and get some.
I mean, the outfit, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see the outfit.
People can't really see my feet.
Yeah, but I can see you pulling out some Jordan 3s today.
Yeah, I could pull out. Yeah, Jordan 3. That's. Thank you, Alan. Now I have something for my wife to also tell me. No, you're not into that. So, but first off, Garrett, Dan Wetzel, who's just on our show. Was that last week we just had Dan Wetzel on?
Last week or the week before? I think it was a couple weeks ago.
Love having Dan Wetzel on. And he wrote a column about the threat of the Super League has at least, we might have a stay on that because there are, because of the impending settlement, needs to really keep everything at the status quo. They can't be, now that they've got to pay out all this money, upsetting the apple cart. So in the short term, that could be good for the NCAA tournament because if the Super Leagues go off in football, don't think that they're not going to try to do it in basketball too. We've already seen Greg Sankey, Brett Yormark, and others.
I mean, would be a perfect example.
Jim Phillips all kind of say that, like, well, you know, that we need to have more teams in the tournament. We need to expand the tournament, which they're not trying to make sure that Indiana State bubble get popped. They want to make sure that Oklahoma would have gotten a better seed or that, you know, the
A&M the year before
and all that, like, would have gotten in. Well, that doesn't make the tournament better. And actually, it was pretty cool to see that, like, I'm not that I was excited that some of the teams I was picking lost, but, you know, Auburn and Baylor and, like, a lot of teams lost really early. And you're like, well, does that mean you need more Big 12 teams? Like, does it mean you need more ACC or SEC teams? And the ACC had a good run in the tournament, but it certainly doesn't mean that we need more of that. No. Like, we don't need more Kentucky's, like, you know, losing to
I can't remember who beat them, honestly.
The team from Michigan. Oakland. Yeah, Oakland. Oh, I'm sorry, Coach.
Kippy. Yeah, Coach Kippy.
Our favorite coach, our guest ever. But, yeah, I mean, that's not – you know,
I don't like the idea of the smaller schools being on hook for significantly more money in this.
Yeah, I don't.
That to me makes no sense.
Or more. I guess it's not really. It's more money overall because there's more of them, but more chunk of their pie.
Revenue.
Yeah, exactly. So they might be paying technically and I see how the big schools, like, this is their scam. It's like, well, we're paying $10 million. You guys are paying $4 million, and we're like. They're like, yeah, but you guys have $10 million. Well, we only have $2 million, so the 4 hurts us more.
Well, and I don't think it's any coincidence that this comes out, and then yesterday all the talk was about the private equity getting involved.
Yeah.
Where would it make sense right now? It would make sense in your group of 5 schools. It would make sense for Oregon State and Washington State, especially those two who really want to be back in the fray with the group or the Power 4
and that's how they get in. So private equity, private capital. That's going to be the well, right now they say private capital. And Mitt Winter kind of went through that with us yesterday. And if that's how it really is, okay, good. But I just have a hard time believing that everybody who's doing this will do it the way that it was described by Drew Weatherford.
Oh, no, you're going to have, I think you'll have probably about, a good portion would get in it for the right reasons, but there's no way once you do that you can keep out.
Well, it's just
people with. I mean, you're going to get into a situation where some athletic program is going to end up losing control to somebody outside, like an outside factor, and that's going to be like terrible.
Yeah, and so, again, the devil's in the details there. But if it means that we stay status quo in the NCAA tournament because of this settlement for a little while, that I think that's a good thing. Now, who knows what's going to happen in the future, and there are so many hands trying to tinker with things. And, I mean, you were there. I asked Brett Yormark, like, right straight up and down. I was like, if you go to the game in Dallas tonight that he was going to go to, I said, if you go to that game and you surveyed everybody in the stadium, should this be expanded, an overwhelming majority of them would say no. This is fine the way it is. Mm-hmm. So why the disconnect between what the fans love and what you guys want?
Agreed.
And he was like, well, he said, well, it would be modest. It would be, up to 72, and you just see more of the play-in type games, which I'm not even fine with that.
I don't want the play-in games suck. I hate the play-in games. Yeah. I don't like that they expanded to 68. I understand. I get it, but I don't even want those. So I don't want even more of that.
I was like, I've made my peace with the fact that exists.
Right. You have to.
Yeah. It sometimes throws an interesting factor that you play on Tuesday, you have to play on Thursday, where the team you played on Thursday hadn't played since maybe Saturday, so you've got that, like, they've got a little extra rest on you. Does it matter? Does it not? Does it mean that you have rhythm where they've been maybe sitting down for a little longer? I don't know. You're kind of locked in. It's different every time. That I appreciate a little bit, but also, like, when I'm watching 2 16 teams play each other for the right to lose.
Yeah.
Like,
what's the point?
I might enjoy that game a little bit just as a microcosm of it, but I'm not gonna be like, oh well,
they've got must-watch TV.
They've got a great chance to beat Duke. Yeah. I just don't. I don't see that. It's only happened twice. Of course, It's both happened recently, and it may start to happen more.
Well, I mean, there's more parity now, but I also like, how long is that going to last? Like, I think that's going to eventually right itself once this.
Do you think that maybe this is happening so that people aren't embarrassed that they lost to 15s and 16s?
Maybe, but I mean, I think now with the portal and really with COVID and those classes, those recruiting classes getting overlooked because of the extra years given, I think it let more talented players have to go find new homes at programs they normally wouldn't have gone to because there was no need to recruit them to a Power 4 program. So they just found their way out there. And then you find these rosters, plus they're getting older, full of good talent, and it's just created more parity. So I don't necessarily know it's a coincidence, but I kind of think it's just a culmination of factors going back to 2020.
Yeah. I think there's a lot, but I do like if the lawsuit keeps us at 68 teams and doesn't keep them from changing for a little while, then good on you, lawsuit, because it's fine. And this was one of the most fun tournaments I've ever watched.
The past two have been really fun.
Yeah, really fun to watch. And so because of that, like, please don't ruin it as like I'm peeking at my this has been really good and I'm really enjoying it. Night in and night out, watching the game. So yeah, I don't want them to change.
I don't either. But the one thing I did find interesting is like at the very end of the article, Wetzel's talking about how this isn't a permanent fix and it could possibly stave this off for a decade. And if you think about that timeline, like that would we're 2024, so that would essentially be 2 years out from if Florida State and Clemson couldn't that TV deal coming up in the ACC and everything. It just seems like you would just be pushing off the inevitable for a breakaway to come later on, and it gives Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina more time to find the money to get out and not have to wait as long with these court cases and everything.
Yeah, But yeah, I do think, and on the chat room, like the private equity thing is concerning.
Oh, it is.
It's concerning. If it's private capital, and it truly is private capital, if it's exactly how Drew Weatherford, I almost called him Danny Werfel, different school. Different school, better quarterback. But almost how Drew Weatherford, still DW, but how Drew Weatherford said it, then fine. I hope it is that way. If that's like you're just investing for royalty fees, fine. I think that's fine. But the minute that, like, the other thing is, like, they'll say private capital and they'll do it, but the minute that, like, somebody, like, takes that money, say Oregon State takes that money and they're just not hitting where they need to hit, does that turn from private capital into private equity?
Well, that and then, like, okay, the wording was you could take, was it the 50 to 200 million to do whatever you want to with it. That's cool in theory. But if you give that to a program, all right, say like you gave that to Baylor and they started investing more of it into baseball and everything, but they put more into – they didn't put as much into football as somebody would hope they would have, right? Like by the end, because they were trying to shore up other sports. Then does that upset the apple cart? Like you said, with full intentions, do whatever you want, But saying and meaning and perspectives behind what you say can be two totally different things. So that can kind of upset people too if you're not doing what they think you should be doing with the money, that how they would treat it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll see. When we come back, how many, let's make the lucky list of who Tennessee bailed out in the short term with that lawsuit. Right now, there's one on my mind that is for the first time ever, this school is thanking God that Tennessee exists.
Yes.
Thanking God that Tennessee exists because of the particulars of this case are essentially exactly what the enforcement was done to stop. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back. We return. And Garrett, earlier this week, Florida State has filed an appeal with the NCAA to have their penalties for NIL violations reduced because they agreed to something, it was announced, and then 2 weeks later or less, the Tennessee and Virginia injunction came down, and the NCAA is not able to enforce any of those NIL rules. And we talked to Mitt Winter yesterday, who's an expert on these things, and there's nothing that says that the NCAA will be able to enforce these kind of things.
No.
There's really nothing. What schools are hoping for is that this will allow them to bring NIL in-house so they can get those donations in-house. But still, there's not going to be anything that prevents a booster and a collective from going with their own means to go get somebody and do those things. There's nothing legally that they're going to be able to do to stop it because, once again, you're preventing someone from making money that they could make. So they're going to try, but they might be able to limit that somewhat and make it more reasonable, and then the collectives don't have to focus on everybody. They can just focus on the whales. I think that's the burden for the collectives right now is if I'm a collective and I'm like, man, we got to raise money for this whole team and all of this.
You can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, you can, but if you did it, the schools and they could get more money and people could make it tax deductible because they could just make a donation to, X university, and then they take that money and do whatever they want with it.
Right.
So that's where you get your tax deduction, and it's probably better off for everybody, but the collectives will still exist. So Florida State wants theirs rolled back, which I think they totally should, and I thought they looked completely ridiculous when it's like, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
You just agreed to this, and then this happened? Fight a little harder, guys.
Well, that's kind of been my thing with Florida State this whole time. Is you keep agreeing to egregious things and then bitching when it doesn't work out for you.
Yeah, I know. It's like, hey, well, the problem was the president at the time at Florida State that agreed to the TV deal was out to lunch. Anyway, So, which actually, when it comes to these things, like that's why they get done, because most of the university presidents are out to lunch on these things. They're brilliant people, but they don't know anything about this. Just like if you took a TV president and was like, all right, here you go. And a TV president might do better. Like, for example, our friend Bob Thompson is going to be on the show with us next week. Bob, like, if I told him you're in charge of Duke University right now, he would do better than the Duke University president would be in charge of Fox Sports, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not knocking university presidents. They're for the most
different perspective.
It's just a different perspective on things. It's just you're asking someone who's, for the most part, grown up their entire life and career focusing on these things, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, by the way, here's football TV deal, and you're like, well, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
You know, like, yes, yeah, sure. And then you call the other guy and he's like, it sounds good to me. And they're like, all right, let's get somebody else on the phone. Let's get them all in a room. And they're all the same kind of people. And they're like, well, it sounds good. What do you think, TV guy? And the TV's like, oh, it's a great deal. It's a great deal for you guys. It's a great deal. Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you. We're going to do this. You should be with us. You should be with us. Listen, we're ESPN. We're owned by Mickey Mouse. Come on. You know you want to. Come on. And then they do it. So Florida State agreed to that. You know, that's what they do. But now, look, it was coming down. Like, the next thing that came out after Florida State was that Florida was being investigated for Jaden Rashada specifically. Then, for the first time in the history of the rivalry, Tennessee does them a favor because, again, it was coming for, like, it had already come for Tennessee and was about to come for Jaden Rashada. But Jaden Rashada is unique in that the thing that the schools were not supposed to do, the only thing really that they couldn't do, was that the agents of the school, which would be the coaches, could not promise money directly to a player.
Correct.
That all had to go through the collective. Well, if Billy Napier did in fact tell him, you'll get $1 million if you sign with us on signing day, then Billy Napier would have violated that rule. And this would have been a huge deal if the NCAA was able to enforce those rules. Now, Billy Napier would not be the first coach ever to offer a kid money directly, nor would he be the last.
No.
Nor is he the only coach who's done this. But he is the most prominent coach who did it with people who didn't have the money backing him. So if they were going to get $13 million, it was probably all going to have to come from Billy himself. And while he makes a lot of money, that's still like 4 years of checks for him right now. So that was how that was going to be. And especially, you know, Edgar Thompson made this great point about it the other day, is they already had DJ Lagway committed for a very long time, for the very next year. And he was a higher rated prospect than Jaden Rashada. And here's where it gets confusing to me. If you're going to give Jaden Rashada this much money, DJ Lagway is probably going to ask for the same thing when he finds out.
Yeah, because you set the bar at that.
You set the bar at that. Or even if DJ Lagway didn't, there's eventually going to be like, well, I beat him out, so do I get his money now? Or like, what happens?
Because you know you would transfer if you get beat out, more than likely.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, that was such a weird thing to go all in on 2 recruits on back-to-back. Like, it just wasn't good planning.
Well, my thing was, like, if that would have gone through, what is that going to do to your locker room? Like, you're bringing a dude in who is not guaranteed to win the job. Like, I'm pretty sure he could have beat out Graham Mertz, but it's not guaranteed, right? Like, that was never guaranteed. And then if I have linemen or star players in there who have already been on this team, have already proved what they could do, and they're not making that type of money, like, if I'm a lineman, I'm letting you get crushed, and then I'm going to laugh at you. Yeah, like that's just.
Well, I don't blame Jaden Rashada in this slightest. You know, for taking advantage of the situation. Like, and I blame the adults in the room, the money people who are out there making deals. You know, and you know. Don't write checks. This isn't even Top Gun. Like, don't let your mouth write checks that your ass can't cash. Yeah. Like, don't write checks you can't cash. Go ahead. That's what happened to them. And, you know, look, and I'm going to say it again because I said it yesterday. It would not have happened if he was doing this and if it was Georgia and Alabama.
No.
Because, again, as much as they want him, they weren't that desperate for it. He couldn't even have done it with Tennessee, considering they'd had very recent success.
He might have been able to do that with like Texas and Texas A&M, and A&M would have threw the money. But
I mean, but again, Texas also had Quinn Ewers, and they also had Arch Manning on the hook. So that situation was not available to him, and A&M was feeling really good about where they were now with Haynes King and Connor Wigman and all that. So even though they did go down the road with A&M a little bit, he kept kind of throwing them out there. I felt that he was throwing them out there because they
would play.
Well, that was the everybody knows about them. Sliced the bread and told us all that, golly,
my only thing with all of this is I don't understand the states, the schools, and everything complaining about the NCAA not ever doing anything. And then when they do try to step in and put structure or rules or discipline people, then you sue them. So it's counterproductive to anything you're trying to get going. That's one thing that's always kind of confused me. Everybody blames the NCAA, and rightfully so for most part. But when they do actually try to act and do something or enforce a rule, then you take them to court, because that's what I don't understand with all of this.
Yeah. So, but if you taken a minute and thought about how bad this would be if the old rules were still in place, think about how bad it would be for Billy Napier if the old rules were still in place. And this is as bad as it's going to get for a coach going into a season anyway. He's already got a tough schedule. He's already on the hook for this lawsuit that says he's the one doing this.
You're talking about rules, if he couldn't get players and stuff.
Oh no, if the rules were how they were, in the old days, if you knew that Billy Napier offered somebody $1 million, holy cow, it would be an absolute firestorm. And this is a firestorm around there. But I hope that we as a college football population learn from this, in that you should not give somebody who has not played college football yet that much control over the future of your program.
No.
And while absolutely, yes, they need to be taken care of, I think you'll be fine. And all the coaches who said this, I completely agree with. Not getting into a bidding war. Now, when I say bidding war, if I've got a receiver, I'll just use Keon Coleman as an example. So Keon Coleman was choosing between LSU didn't really get in on him last year because dear God.
Yeah, they didn't need him. They didn't need him. they could use him this year,
but he was choosing between, I want to say, FSU and Ole Miss last year. So if he goes to Ole Miss and they say, okay, we're going to give you 1.2, and then FSU's like, we'll give you 1.5, and then he goes back to Ole Miss and they're like, yeah, we can do that, and he went to Ole Miss. Okay, that's fine if that's the first choice you wanted to go to.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be we'll give you 2.5, don't do that. I would let somebody counter, just in good faith, business-wise, but the minute they got to a number that was take it or leave it, I'd be leave it. I'm not going to, you're going to make a lot of money for 1 year here. Let's not, so we're not going to play this bidding war game. Here's the market value. This is what you can get. There'll be more money available to you, especially if you start to perform and make yourself notable here. But right now, this is what we're going to give you. I think that's the best way to approach it. I think that's how most do it. I think that's how Nick Saban did it. I think that's how most of them do it. They just have to keep ahead because the money's always going to go up. So they have enough in their coffers to do that and keep that policy. But you see Florida and Miami got in this situation where so desperate to be back to who they used to be that, they had a situation where, we've got to give this kid all this money.
Do you think that number, and I'm glad it was fine. I'm glad that everything came out. I think everybody can benefit from everything coming out in this situation and learning how messed up it was. But do you think that this is on par or could be used the way that Sam Bradford contract was used in the NFL that put it into the ridiculous rookies getting a certain amount of money?
I think so. Yeah, I think that was and that was strange because that was NFL players that were all like, hey, look, I'm not getting my best value on a second contract because you're paying a guy who hasn't played in the NFL yet this big chunk of the cap. There's a fair way to do this, and they worked it out. Obviously, college doesn't have that kind of bargaining power yet, but it needs to get to that point.
It absolutely does.
I do admire coaches that Boise State,
Spencer
Danielson. He was like, look, we're not gonna bid for runner pay for freshmen. That's just now how it works. Now he misspoke a little bit, and they had to let him clarify it. But people ran with that. But no, he's like, look, NIL is available to them if somebody wants to pay them, but we're not going to budget our NIL for freshmen. We're going to make sure guys earn it.
I think most people should take that approach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Unless you have a guy like is just
unless you've got a Texas Tech type program that's got a, like, this is what you are, and Texas Tech is, like,
they found that loophole, too.
Yeah. But Texas Tech, sophomores make more than freshmen, juniors make more than sophomores, seniors make more than juniors, So, it's not like you're not getting a 50% raise every year, but it's graduated up so that you're incentivized to stay in the program. Texas Tech's retention was pretty good. Like, everybody they lost, I don't think that they cared about losing. I think if you look at the teams that are going to be consistently good in the portal year over year, it's not about losses in the portal. I think this will be a bit of an outlier year for Alabama because they lost that
was unprecedented.
They lost the wave of guys who Alabama was their they had 1A and 1B kind of choices.
They went for Saban, not the school.
So they went for Saban and not necessarily Alabama. And then when Saban left, they're like, well, I'm just going to I'll go to 1B because I kind of like that better anyway.
Right.
But I was willing to put that away to go play for Nick Saban, which I think most people understand that, So then you have a wave of these guys who most of them are like redshirt freshmen and sophomores who would have just been getting their real first opportunity this year.
Yep.
So it wasn't like, Alabama has not lost anybody that contributed last year where Kalen DeBoer is going to find it is
outside of
there's a gap in the veterans, right?
Is it Isaiah Bond? He's about the only one.
Yeah, he's about the only one. I would say that's like, oh crap. Because here's a guy they lost on his ascendancy, but they've lost a couple guys like that.
Yeah.
Jermaine Burton was that for them. Yeah. On his ascendancy went to Alabama. There's a couple guys like that. You're going to lose those. But for the most part, when you're building your roster, look at the teams and who they lose in the transfer portal. A&M's going to be a weird case this year because they lost a ton of guys. And do I think they're going to be better on the defensive line without Walter Nolan? No, I don't. I don't. But he's a unicorn kind of a player. He's, he could play at any school, anywhere he wanted to, and he'll be really good.
Yep.
And he performed the whole time he was at A&M, but new coaching staff, apparently bigger financial opportunities.
I don't blame him for leaving.
I don't blame him. It's very tumultuous. It was a very stressful time. They couldn't keep him. They couldn't keep Evan Stewart. They lost a lot of their big, talented classes. Mm-hmm. But for that school in particular, they added a lot of guys Mike Elko went and got a lot of
worker bees,
guys who can have that attitude to bring that back because A&M got away from who it was. They've always been at their best. Which is why I think they'll actually be better with Texas in the conference again, because now they have their true
measuring stick.
Well, that's the North Star of their hatred, right? And when they were at their best, they were in the conference with Texas, and honestly chasing them most of the time. But R.C. Slocum had actually turned the tables on Texas for a good long while, and then. Once they let go of R.C. Slocum, they just lost their identity. And they have these little, they're good, they're not good. They're good, they're not good. Oh, they're building up. They never had their identity again. Mm-hmm. And the identity of them is these snobby hippies from Austin, and we're down home, that's we're Merca. And, this is what we are. This is about, we have a school that's the nuts, and it's not that way anymore. A&M is a very elite school in almost everything they do, but their attitude is still built out of farmers fight, right? Mm-hmm. Believe me, I know. I grew up my whole life just randomly hearing my dad yell farmers fight when games weren't even on. He'd just be out in the yard. Farmers fight. And I'm like, oh, okay. There we go. And not even when he was old. This is when he was still young, in his 30s and 40s. Oh, this is not even 70-year-old. I don't give a crap. I'm going to go, the mailbox is just right outside the door. I don't have to put pants on. We live kind of out. If somebody's driving by, they drive by, whatever.
Yep.
I've done well for myself. Screw them. I can't wait till I get to that point in my life. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to when my grandkids will go be like, pants, and the shut up.
Who needs that?
Who needs pants? Take yours off. I don't care.
Overrated.
We'll walk around in our underoos. It's fine. But it's but yeah, they'll be better. They got their identity. But the ones who hurt are the ones who can't retain players year over year. And so, or they get the reason they can't retain players is they've gotten kind of desperate and they're like, we'll go get this guy in the portal. Okay, he was fine for us, but now he's looking for something else. And so you didn't identify the guys who really want to be in. So retention to me, and we saw the portal in the spring, which everybody was like, oh, it's going to be a massive wave because people are going to see this opportunities at Washington and Alabama to be in premier schools and jump there. And outside of the coaching change, guys, really it wasn't that big of a deal.
No, I mean, none of the big-name people that went to other schools really did anything. And the way I look at it is, like, if you are able to – I would rather – if I'm looking for players in the portal, I would rather build up with guys who are coming up a classification who have shown, like, they could dominate – like – Jared Verse, like he dominated at Albany and worked his way up. Like I would rather take a flyer on a player like that than some guy who has tried to build my roster around people who have like flailed out at like a Power 5 program and you bounce around a couple more. Like to me, I would rather work on build around people who are worker bees, show that they want to put the effort in and are showing consistency to move up rather than try to build around with names of people or you were once a 5-star recruit, maybe I can fix you. Yeah, I think there is some approach on that, and people are starting to get smart to that. A&M is a good example. I think Elko has done a good job of that. I think LSU's done a pretty good job of that as well. I think Baylor's going to be an interesting case. Some of what they've done are that, some aren't. I'm being intrigued with them, but I think you will see more teams take that kind of approach.
I think Baylor's big thing is, can you get 5 big guys?
Competent offensive linemen.
Like they don't have to be the best. They just have to be better.
Yes.
They just have to be all right. Like get through and start developing some linemen so that you're not kind of running this – kind of piecemeal through like they have been year to year. And that's tough. Like offensive line is one of the most sought after positions. It's hard to keep guys in a program and develop, but I do think that, again, if you start having good retention and all these things, like, look, most people also know, like, all right, this guy's a junior. He's going to play next year. I can probably play on the other side, and then I'll be in his spot next year. Offensive line works a little bit different because more than anything else, like that offensive defensive line, you just kind of know. Like you'll know. Like, okay, I know if you're behind Walter Nolan, you'll know. Like I know why I'm behind Walter Nolan. As opposed to wide receivers, like skill position guys, all their numbers are about to say, like, I run as fast as him. I've watched myself make good catches. I do all these things, so I could do that somewhere else. But there's, that happens more there. Linemen, yes, they do transfer, and they do transfer like. There's guys who are trying to find a spot to play, but I think you've got a better chance because it is mano a mano. If me and Garrett are going against each other every day and I'm winning every day, Garrett's going to go like, all right, well, I just know I need to get better because I can't be Paul. Paul's the guy who's the left guard. I'm going to be the left guard after Paul leaves. That's how it's going to be. But also, I think there's also usually better continuity along an offensive line because you have to spend so much ridiculous time together and –
it's like 1 week link could ruin a whole thing.
Oh, yeah. I know this. I had really hard football practices in high school. And I'm not saying that the other guys didn't have hard football practices. But I would often look over there and go, I mean, that didn't seem so bad. They get the ball. They're running out in open space. Like maybe one guy tackles them, but we are running into each other constantly for 2.5 to 3 hours a day. Yeah. So I feel like I'm working a little like when I take off my pads and I'm sore,
a little different.
Mine's a little different. If you're a DB, like, yeah, you've been running a little bit.
That's why they chirp so much.
Yeah, but you haven't been getting wailed on all day long.
Especially now, you don't have to worry about even going across the middle and getting taken out. Like, there's nothing you have to worry about.
No. Just saying. That's all I'm saying. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk hockey. As Garrett debuts the very first, this is not how the segment's going to probably end up being.
No.
But we're going to do the very first puck around and find out as the NHL playoffs are underway. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back as we debut, and Emery's just in time for this. Emery, did anybody ask you about yesterday's top five? Did anybody say why I threw so much smoke at you about Livy Dunn? Okay. Did you tag her in the description?
In the description, no, but in the
search
keys, yes.
Okay.
Definitely the search keys?
Yeah,
Okay.
Good deal.
Okay.
Good deal. I have no problem shortcutting our way to a lot of views on that one. I think people are going to be like, oh, well, that was just a second.
I see her in the thumbnail.
All right. So, again, I'm sorry. I'm doing a
little fuzzy. Dude, I don't understand this.
A 1970s porno right now. There we go. Okay. Garrett, we debut, and he's wearing a Star shirt today. Puck around and find out.
Man, so I don't really know how I want to go with this, but in general, right now, you have the Eastern Conference Finals got underway last night. Mm-hmm. You had the Florida Panthers they went into Madison Square Garden. Obviously, New York fans have been rabid, so they go there to take on the Rangers. A lot of energy in this one, and it did not pan out well at all for New York. Matthew Tkachuk is one of my favorite players in the league for Florida in general. He absolutely went off last night. He had 2 hits in the first period on Trocheck that just rocked him, had him kind of with his head on a swivel, just totally took him out of his game. He got the scoring going on early on in this as well. Like, the energy – the Rangers had no energy whatsoever to match with Florida. Florida came out, their forecheck was ridiculous. The Rangers couldn't get anything going on offense. Once they were finally able to get past half court from the defensive pressure that Florida was applying all night, they couldn't get anything going on their shots whatsoever. Sergei Bobrovsky, the goalie for Florida, played lights out. Florida only allowed like 23 shots on the night. 11 of them were in the third period alone. Sergei was just a wall. Like, they could not get anything going on him. If the Rangers, they cannot afford to lose game 2. If you go down 0-2 at home in the Garden and then you go back to Florida, there's no way. In my mind, you're going to lose this series in 5. Like, you cannot compete with them. Igor, I can never pronounce his last name. Igor, the goalie for the Rangers, he played pretty good last night, but the pressure and the amount of shots that Florida was able to get on him kind of got him rattled a little bit. There's this one series late in the third period.
Shesterkin?
Igor Shesterkin. Yeah, there was a series that if everybody could go back and watch this, it was what makes everything beautiful about playoff hockey. Like, you hear all the time about how it's one of the best sports when it comes to playoff. My opinion, it is. But man, you come down. It was Florida was coming up the ice, and they get it across half court, and then one of their players breaks his stick, and he goes out to guard a pass on. It was at the wing for New York. And they go to shoot. He jumps up, hits it with his hand. It hits Adam Fox in the grill, busts his teeth up. And then they go back down to the other end because New York gets a breakaway. Igor gets a stop and then starts throwing punches. The goal didn't count. Then Florida came right back out and scored, flipped the script, and won the game. It was so awesome to watch. That series, this is going to be a lot of fun. I think Florida, I wasn't too sure about them, how far they would go. I know they made the championship game last year. Coming into the playoffs, I thought that there were 6 teams that could legitimately play and win the Stanley Cup. 4 of them are your final 4 you have right now with Florida, New York, Dallas, and the Oilers out of Edmonton. But I also thought the East, Boston had a chance. They could have legitimately won the Stanley Cup Finals. Florida knocked them out. And then I also thought out of the West, you had to worry about Vegas, the defending champs. So 4 of the 6 best teams are here. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I think you got who you wanted to see. You got the right matchups. I would like to see Sam Bennett get a little more involved on the offense when it comes to Florida. He had a goal last night on an open shot, but he needs to be more involved if Florida really wants to win the series. And offensively, you're going to have to really get past Panarin and Trocheck going if you're New York, because the shots they had last night, Panarin, especially on a breakaway, he had a good opportunity, just couldn't get the puck to slide through. A lot of credit goes to Sergei again on that for the play he did. But that's going to be a fun matchup. I still think New York overall is the better team, but they're going to definitely have to match up the physicality if they want to compete. Now tonight, you got Dallas taking on Edmonton. These 2 teams have been on a collision course all year. It's either going to be Dallas and Vegas in this, or it was going to be Edmonton in this. Dallas took care of Vegas early on. Edmonton, it's been so long since the team from Canada has been able to win the
31 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
31 years. The Montreal Canadiens, the last team that won it from Canada, and I think this is the one that gets me the most. The Toronto Maple Leafs have not won a Stanley Cup since 1967.
Dude, it's ridiculous.
So do their fans get as mad as Cowboy fans do? They should be madder because the Maple Leafs haven't done it because
they are almost identical to Cowboy fans. And if you look, they were so good this year, and they completely just crapped the bed when it came in that first round against Boston. Them and Boston went back and forth. Austin they are really ruining the golden years for Austin Matthews in Toronto. They're going to have to figure out something, or he's going to end up exiting in the next couple of years. That's a really good comparison, though, between those 2 franchises.
Okay. Yeah, but I like the way the Stars have been playing.
Oh, it's
so really good. And eventually one of the streaks, there's 2 streaks going right now in these playoffs. In the Eastern Conference, the Rangers haven't won since 94, so it's been 30 years for them, and it's been 31 years for the entire country of Canada.
Yeah.
The entire country of Canada, who, this is also hurts, I think, in the NHL. If you're, a Maple Leafs, a Canucks, an Oilers, Calgary, any of those fans, Flames, all that. And they've all, Calgary's played a bunch of times. Everybody's had their shots.
Was really good
Winnipeg
this year.
was really good. You're right. But they've had teams in the Stanley Cup Finals. You're sending young Canadian men down into America to just win places that do not care about hockey like you do. Now, look, the Stars have a great amount of fans.
They do.
But if you told the city of Dallas, the Stars will never win another game, but the Cowboys will win every other Super Bowl, they're like, sorry, guys, we don't,
They probably just tell the franchise to leave.
Sorry, listen, we'll pay for you to move. I'm sorry, but this is what we care about. This is the only thing we do. So That's like the same thing. Like the Lightning have won a bunch of times now. The same thing would happen in Tampa.
Oh yeah.
Look, you went to Florida right now. If you told them that the Dolphins and the Heat would win, and even the Marlins, who they only half-ass care about, they'd what do we have? We have to give up hockey. Oh, bummer. Yep. I was a Rangers fan before I moved down here anyway.
Exactly.
So
half of them were transplant fans.
Yeah. No. They. It is, but I do. I think, Garrett, I like the idea of the segment. I think we're gonna get it going. But I do like. I'm picking Dallas in 6. It'll be tough, but I think they'll get it done.
Well, I think if Connor McDavid was fully healthy for Edmonton, I think it could go 6, man. But there's something going on with his upper body. He's still his skating is really good, but he's had a couple of he's hesitant to take shots and everything. I'd be intrigued to see how they play him and Draisaitl. I think they're going to have to put them on 2 different lines to compete with Dallas. Dallas has too much depth, especially once you get into the third line. They can't compete with Dallas. Also, I think the moves that Dallas made this offseason or this free agency, bringing in Tanev and also bringing in not Marchment, but what's his name from Nashville? Anyway, bringing them 2 over has been completely a game changer, especially Tanev. What he's able to do on the defensive end, and he's going to be able to open things up for Miro Hankinson so he can have some shots and not have to, because you're going to be able to take Tanev and you're going to be able to put him on Draisaitl. You're going to be able to put him on McDavid and lock them up, and then you're going to have to open up other shots. Wyatt Johnson is playing arguably some of the best hockey in the league right now. He's one of the he passed Mike Modano for most goals before the age of 21 this season. He's doing really good. Stankoven looks really good on their final line. One note, though, Rope Hintz took a big shot the last series against Colorado, and he missed most of it. They were hoping to get him back this morning. Early skate around, he wasn't available. He's still game to game. Hopefully they can get him back in game 2, because that'll be a really crucial for Dallas. But if you look between the pipes, man, Jake Ottinger, to me, I think he's the best goalie. Him or Sergei from Florida, to me, are the best goalies left in this. But Stuart Skinner, he's already been pulled once in the playoffs. And when Dallas played them last, Dallas beat them 5-0, and Skinner had no answer. And with the depth of Dallas offensively, I really think they can get this series 1 and 5, honestly.
There you go. Oh, wow. You're optimistic.
If McDavid was healthy, like I said, it could be different. But without that, man, there's no way.
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap it up right here because it is pouring outside and I want to look out the window. That's what I want. I know I'm kind of like a 9-year-old, but it is
cool to open these windows up, look over
absolutely pouring right now, and I want to watch the impending flood. So Emery, pick the animals that you want to keep, and we'll. Is there anything you want to go extinct? If there's something we don't need anymore, we don't have to take them on the next arc. And I love animals, but there's a couple we could probably do without.
I don't really care for koalas.
Oh, well, it's because it's this. Yeah. There we go. Don't worry about it. It's also the syphilis, right? Yeah. They had that story a couple years ago about how the koalas are really lazy and the fires were killing the koalas. Well, they're so lazy they get syphilis. It's
them with the sloths.
Yeah, absolutely. Filthy. Just we're on fire. All right, that's gonna do it for us. My apologies for Emery, although I'm not. I'm very proud of him. All right, now koalas are mean as F.
Koalas.
Yeah, well. Can't use that one for 365 Sports Tonight. I don't know how many people heard it. But,
that's good.
Yeah, glad you weren't on the mic. So, anyway, all right, that's gonna do it for us. This is 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and